Well, good morning,
Good morning.
fellow podcast listeners and viewers here on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok.
Podcast world out there.
Did you, did you hear what I said?
TikTok.
Yeah.
You've been watching TikTok videos lately?
I have actually never watched a TikTok video, but
Wait, I've seen TikTok. You haven't never seen a TikTok video?
not that I know of.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen little ads for TikTok videos. It's usually someone dancing around. But-
Yeah, there's some dancing going on.
But this is a thought that I had. So this is big because I talk so much faster than you, time's a ticking, and because I'm more concise than you are, no need for the backstory. I'm thinking next year in January, I'm going to start a TikTok thing, which will be a 1-minute video, sort of a word for the day to get people thinking and moving in the right direction. And then if they want to see a longer version of that, they can go to the This Changes Everything podcast that I was going to start last year during the pandemic and didn't because it was a weird year. But so in addition to the Inglorious Pastords, there could be TikToking, there could be Facebooking, YouTubing, podcasting all at the same time. But here's why I'm thinking that. I know I'm just jumping right in, but I got so much to talk about.
I don't think I talk that much more slowly than you do.
Did we put it on slow-mo accidentally? Because it seems like you're talking. Hey, I love it. We're contrasting very well today. This is
Well, I wore this shirt for you.
It's such a nice shirt. That's
This
a very
is the
nice
first
golf
time I've
shirt.
worn this. Yes,
Synthetic.
Yeah,
So it's wicking.
I brought it because I thought you would be proud. I thought you'd be proud of me.
I'm very proud of you.
I got this at an estate sale.
That's very nice.
Which, before we get to your stuff, though, speaking of estate sales,
Yeah.
I just want to bring back a memory or two from our childhood. Come on.
My gosh. Look at this.
Classic comics.
Classic Comics. Ivanhoe by Sir Walter
Won
Scott.
by the sword.
Gallantly.
Do
Look
you
at
have a
these.
particular one you remember? I remember the Count of Monte Cristo. And
I remember.
do you remember?
It's funny. I remember Ivanhoe. I don't remember this conspiracy of.
Yeah, no, some
Pontiac.
of these, right. It's amazing how many of these are out there, actually. And then the other thing I had to bring, I mentioned this last week. but
Oh my gosh.
Is
it the brownie?
It's the brownie Hawkeye. Dad would take pictures.
And this is how you took them.
I'm going to smile. Okay, everybody smile.
It's amazing how poorly I can see you through this. Look at this, folks. Well, for you in podcast land, it's a black
It's a
square
small box.
about 4 inches by 3 inches by 2.5 inches. And it's got a little light thing.
And you
And you
look
can-
down through the top, and there's the
That's how you click it.
yeah.
And this is how you roll the film.
Roll the film.
Oh my gosh, this is
Yes.
a blast to the past.
And now our
What happens when
phones
you press this
are our
button?
cameras. Who knew?
This is just so funny.
Anyway,
Speaking of which, I didn't have my phone all day yesterday because I left it at the office, and it was a good reminder that I don't have to have a phone.
how long? Yeah, we should. How long do you think you could go without your phone? And just now, it was an accidental.
Yeah.
But like 12 hours. That's
12
just
hours.
even a test. It's
You know,
good.
Roger, I did fine. You know where I missed it most? It was interesting. So I was watching a little movie on TV, and I was like, "Oh, I want to look up this actor, see how old they are." I do
Okay.
that more, as I'm getting older.
Right.
It's like Kevin Costner. I'm like, "How old is he? He's got to be 100 now." And then I'm like, "Oh, I can't look it up." And I didn't want to go take time to get off the couch, get my computer, bring it back, Google Kevin Costner. But my guess is 63.
Okay.
I don't know for sure how old he is.
No, I know. Occasionally I've done that with a musical artist, and it's surprised me. Which reminds me, I think the Monkees did their
Kevin Costner.
final concert a couple of days ago.
It says the Monkees
Their
did Kevin
farewell.
Costner's. Nope, that was not what we're trying to. Not what we're trying to do there. Let's do a big. They're doing their final concert.
They did. I think a couple nights ago. I think the Monkees, and they have to be old.
Oh yeah, he's 66.
Costner.
Yep.
Okay.
I was in the right genre. No, I also heard 60s. I was
That's not a genre.
It is by me.
That's an era.
I did find out yesterday that there is a huge classic rock tour coming up with like Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, and Joan Jett all at the same time.
Well,
same stage.
Holly, our sister, recently went and watched Metallica.
Really?
In concert. And I was thinking,
they're still alive.
They're still right. They're still
Right.
Still concert.
Right.
You know, are they?
Wow. It's a big deal.
No, those are very interesting lineups.
Yeah, I think so too.
Although I know they're not really together, but if you ever could kind of piece the Eagles back together for,
oh yeah,
would you ever go? I mean, would that be the concert
of the year
that I would do? A
Don Henley, Joe Walsh,
yeah,
Peter
Cetera,
Frampton. No, we're way off now. Hey, did you know that Aaron Neville did a thing with Chicago for a while?
No.
Black singer sings up here. It's amazing. All falsetto, just great. He did a whole album with Linda Ronstadt, which I listened to last week on one of my trips. It was just great fun.
Well, what's interesting, I don't remember his name, but I think there was later Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
There was a black gentleman, I think, who
really
toured, played. I need to look that up now.
That's
again,
very
that's
okay. So back to
and I didn't want to blow by your TikTok happiness.
Hey, I do have a question. What's that brownie worth? The brownie camera.
Oh, it's not worth a lot.
$100?
Oh gosh, no. Gold is not gold.
Oh, really? I would have thought $100.
No, that's
because it's cool.
It's very cool, and it's definitely old. Some of the old Kodak cameras, might be 50, 100, but that one's maybe 10.
Really? So I went
to, get a flash on it. Maybe it's 20, 15, 20, but
I went to the local film developer. I think there's like one in Huntsville, and they had an entire showcase of old cameras.
Is this Bob Wallace?
Like from 6 on Bob Wallace.
Okay.
But I had 5 rolls of film that we didn't know what it was. We had just found them, and it was mostly Zach's pictures. It was interesting off the stuff that one was an unused roll, which had nothing on it. That was disappointing because you're still paying money.
Right.
But it was just interesting to look back at all these things. One was a field trip that Zach took. One was trip to Florida, or May trip to Florida, and he was taking pictures of everybody. So that was interesting. But I was fascinated by, I'm like, I guess there's a market for vintage cameras. People enjoy that.
Well, what's funny is
they want to shoot pictures with it.
Now, it's interesting. There's a market for undeveloped film like that because people...
Dang it!
No, in other words, people... If you have a...
Can I just roll it back in there real quick?
Because that's part of the thing. We don't know what's going to be on there.
Right.
But now, of course, old film, I still sell. People wouldn't realize, but you can have old Kodak paper as long as it's still sealed and unexposed.
Yep.
The expiration date may be 1967. Like the mid 60s is very common to have expiration dates, but I've sold for very good money. People who are still using old developer paper, old film, as long as it's not exposed.
And there's still people doing new Polaroid cameras. So Zach and Carly, for their wedding, they're putting a Polaroid camera on so people can shoot it and it'll come out, zzz, and then and then you can look at it. So we'll have pictures, and then they'll take those pictures instead of having a guest register. The pictures of them will go in an album, which is a cool way of doing it.
No, it's a
little
fun
album, so you can actually see the people. And
the Polaroid has developed significantly, but now some of the old Polaroid, some of those cameras can bring some decent money as well. But I've sold a Polaroid land camera with leather case, for over $100.
Wow, that's cool.
So yeah, it's very fun.
So back to TikTok.
So should we do TikTok videos, you and me?
Well, we could, but you're gonna have to talk faster because a minute goes by a lot faster than you think.
Now, is that the thing? TikTok is a minute?
Well, I think you're shooting for a minute or less.
Okay.
It's like this. I mean, it's a quick. Now again, I don't know enough about it, but I would love the challenge of, because you do a day video that runs about 5 minutes.
No, it's closer to 10.
Is it really?
Yes.
Maybe that's where I check out.
I think that's really where, when I started, it was around 5 or 6, and it's morphed into 9 or 10.
Roger's gone to preaching. He can't
But
help
I
himself.
honestly would probably, there are probably people who would stay with it, watch more. If they look and see, oh, it's 4.5 minutes. Yeah.
Well, and I don't look
sure
at
I
that.
lose
That's
people.
interesting. I don't look at that. But I do get every morning. It tells me when you're up, because I've subscribed to your face, whatever you call that.
How you subscribe to, because it's not really a thing. It's just.
But it literally shows up on my phone every morning. Look, Roger did this thing. Oh, I've already eliminated it, but it was there.
Huh.
And it even shows your face. Your mug comes up, with your coffee and all that stuff. Your mug with your mug, which is your stick.
Hey, wait. Do you hear the sound? Oh, you're getting ready to say something. So
the sound of silence. Yes. No, I was thinking. So I was reading Matthew 24, and there's that whole passage in there. Jesus says things are going to get really bad in the end days, and of course, I think we're in that. Because Jesus said even this generation won't pass away before you start seeing this stuff happen.
What you're saying, you think we're in the end days? What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean in the days leading up to the return of Christ.
Okay.
And I think that was basically from resurrection on, because it happened in that certain things happened in that generation, the destruction of Jerusalem and all of that.
Right.
But I think Jesus was also pointing to things further out. Oh, I had an interesting insight on something that he said that I was always wondering about. We talk about it, and it was very encouraging to me, your face cast about how many times Jesus would say something and it said the disciples did not understand. I mean, they're still hanging with him. They're still walking with him.
But I love that.
But they're back there mumbling. What the heck is he talking about?
No, just like,
I literally have no idea what he just said.
Andrew, do you know what he was?
Nope.
Peter? But
well, I guarantee you Peter offered up something.
Right. Exactly. I was thinking the same.
Whether he knew it or not, he's going to offer up something. Right. But there was something I'd been reading for years and wasn't totally sure. But Jesus was talking about in these days, there's going to be all these false prophets that appear and even self-proclaimed messiahs. And he said they're going to do miracles. Just a very interesting thing, when you think about certain, even, I don't know, televangelists that do these miracles and whatnot. Anyway, what was interesting about it, he said, but they're not real. Don't go chasing out to the desert or over to the stadium or whatever else. He said, you'll know when I come. It's like lightning flashing. You're going to know. But then he said, where a carcass is, the vultures will gather. And for years I was like, I would read the NIV text note there that said the second coming of Jesus will be as obvious as when you see vultures circling, there's a carcass. And I thought it's a reasonable explanation. But you know what I thought in the context, because the context was false teachers and false prophets. He said people are going to gather. They're going to gather to vultures. They want something to eat. They're going to gain something from this, but they're just going to a corpse. In other words, it was an interesting take on. There's always things that are not of God that are going on, that are drawing these, that people are gathering to, but it's not of Jesus. He said, don't go there just because it's popular. It's like vultures gathering over a dead body.
Things that don't give life, things that don't have life.
Right.
That's an interesting, right, where we're drawn to, stuff that, there's an attraction factor, but it isn't life-giving. I think that old song, looking for love in all the wrong places, looking for life
in too many places,
looking
faces, searching for love. What I'm dreaming of. Okay. So
searching so long.
Yeah.
Chicago.
Now you're in Chicago. But what I thought about that was interesting after I'll keep reading. So Jesus says, and we're very familiar with this. He says,
are we?
Well, he said, men are going to betray each other and people are going to leave the faith. And they're going to betray each other and hate each other. And it's like, because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. And we've talked about that a lot on this podcast, and I think we've seen that in the last 5 years where you have Christian against Christian and it feels like the love is growing cold. But then Jesus says this, he said, but he who overcomes will be saved. This overcome by love, because the context there is standing in who stands firm to the end. That's it. Who stands firm to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached to the nations as a testimony, and the end will come. It's this thing of, it just struck me again, because then right after that, he goes, so who's the faithful and wise servant who's been given in charge to give the servants their food in the proper time? It'll be good for that person to do it. when his master returns, he said, because some are going to be, my master's been gone a long time, I'm not feeling it. And they begin to oppress the servants and then indulge themselves, in drunkenness and feasting and all of this stuff. And it just struck me, part of my role, as I understand it, in the kingdom of heaven, is a communicator. It is, in that sense, my feeding is speaking, it's teaching the gospel of the kingdom.
Okay.
Always the good news about the kingdom, So I was thinking, all right, I have, and I was struck by this because I was coaching a man in his 70s who wants to know how he can best invest his life in this season. And I think, that man's got 20 years on me, and yet he's like, I want to invest my life. I want to, and I shared that passage with him, and I said, I'm actually thinking about using different technologies now to do that. We do that on this podcast.
Sure.
I want to do that with that This Changes Everything podcast. But I thought, young people that aren't going to listen to a long podcast, they might listen to a 1-minute TikTok.
Sure.
Because they're looking to that all the time. It's just fun. But just teaching the way of Christ in sound bites. Because there's certain things that Jesus gave in sound bites. Now, I realize a lot of things are much longer, but every now and then it was just a sound bite.
Right.
Kingdom of Heaven is it's like yeast that works its way all the way through the dough. It's just this. And what does that mean? And just take a moment to unpack that. So I realized this morning, I was getting excited about, there's no excuse for us,
correct,
as communicators, not to take advantage of all of these different, because the gospel is going to the nations, and we have a better opportunity technologically. In other words, I don't have to go to Zimbabwe to take the gospel to the nations. I can do that from my living room.
Right. Well, we've laughed a little bit, like even our podcast viewership, it's like 5% France or Australia. We've got a couple of, and to start thinking about, I had a very similar.
Okay.
Well, I just came across this the other day. I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this, but it's just another. So I realized, our podcast is anchored in Anchor. Okay. So it's anchor.com.
By the way, I need a tutorial on how to use that.
Yeah. And I can easily do that. Okay. But since I handle that side of it for us, well,
I handle the YouTube side.
And they're connected with Spotify. Anchor and Spotify, I think, are very closely connected. Well, now they're offering this new thing where you can do a podcast with a song.
Okay.
You have to play it in its entirety.
Okay.
But Spotify's worked out this arrangement with an Anchor where you
have the rights to use it one time.
Right. You have the rights in your podcast. So if you want to talk about that podcast,
is a big deal.
It's a big deal because you know how hard music.
Oh my gosh, to get rights to music.
So the caveat is you have to play the entire song. You can't adapt it or anything like that. And I'm sure that comes through Spotify or whatever. You have to play them. But
then we have some fun with that.
Well, for a long time, at one point, I'd wanted to write a book, something like The Messages in the Music, but just taking popular music, not unlike Paul quoting poets, but I've always been fascinated by the insights that the musicians and artists have into our day.
Yep.
And where they speak a word of truth, a song like What If God Was One of Us, or these other.
I was listening to Rod Stewart's Forever Young.
Yes.
Do you realize how much spiritual stuff is just woven through that song?
Yes.
I'm like, I had no idea.
So I had thought about at one point doing a book, but then when I realized all the copyright stuff, you could never pull that off.
I mean, even when I went to write my book, they're like, you can't quote anything out of a song. Right. I can say the title. This writer in this song wrote about this,
and you can.
But I can't the title. Use the piece.
You can use the title, but you can't use lines from the
painting pictures of Egypt.
But now we could do an Anchor, and this is where I thought, because I just love that anyway. But if you take a 3-4 minute song, and then talk about it 3-4 minutes. I'm just talking about. So anyway, it was just but it is another way to keep proclaiming the gospel in the day, to seize the moment.
Right. And where do we find the gospel in contemporary music? Where did Paul find the gospel in the poets and the philosophers of his age?
No,
even his Mars Hill like discourses and stuff like that. I'm like, he's quoting at different times cultural icons and things that the people are very familiar with. But music is a lot of that in our day. I mean, music is possibly music and movies.
And God has, we know, a long history of speaking through people even people who haven't embraced him, they don't,
Right.
they would,
Yes.
I'm not a God follower or whatever, but they speak things that reflect the heart of God. They speak a truth, or they capture something, a reality, or they capture a reality or longing that God speaks to. But anyway, so that's just this new thing through Anchor.
Ooh, I love that.
So that's something for whether it's us. I mean, I have certainly, I've thought it just like you just mentioned, adding something. Because what I learned, even
because you're doing 5 videos a week,
right?
Which
do
I
5,
think is a great stewardship.
And part of that was literally coming even out of that parable of Jesus. What's in your bag? The king's going to leave. He gives everyone their bag of gold. He gives their bag. What's in your talents? And then you're responsible to use that. Well, there was some point where I realized at a point, I'm no longer a pastor.
Right.
So with this title and this role, right? So now, because you and I know when we were pastor, the whole setup was people came to a service. We were going to be a speaker, a teacher, but we didn't have to line anything up. So we're now pastards and not pastors, and so we're
pastor retired. That's where the pastor comes from. Pastor retired, pastored.
So how do you step out? And I remember that was part of the decision for me was, you know what? I'm going to use what's in. I've got technology. I've got some insights God has given me, however flawed some of them might be, but I'm going to steward what God's poured into me. And then we added this. This was another layer, but I realized
we've been doing this for 1.5 years now, people.
Don't scare them.
I know. It's yes.
But I realized I can add more. I love what you're I can add more.
Right. So, and again, when I think about a minute, I'm not thinking that's a killer time commitment. Like, can I find 1 minute in the day to talk about Jesus? I think I can.
But you might want to think a tad before you.
Well, oh no, I just whip it out there. That's what it's going to do. It's going to just flow from my very likely whatever my daily devotion was.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? I'm always thinking.
What's a daily devotion?
So for me, when I say daily devotion, that did sound terribly spiritual.
No.
So my Bible's at my bedside. In the morning, I have coffee and Bible, and I'm always reading in the Gospels. So I'm just reading something. And
so you do this most every morning.
Most every morning.
Okay.
And I do the Lord's Prayer most every morning. It's okay. It's just become this part of my routine now, because it's a daily prayer. If Jesus says pray for daily bread, there's something about that says this is a daily.
Oh, I think there's
activity, and it centers me on the will of God.
Oh yes, no.
It starts off with He's amazing, great, revered, hallowed.
Do you?
And I want to be about His will.
You speak that out loud. I mean, is that an out loud thing?
So sometimes it's out loud.
Okay.
Like yesterday, Marlena goes, "What are you thinking about?" I'm saying I'm doing the Lord's Prayer. But this morning, since I didn't have my phone to listen to music, I literally did it out loud in my car, just driving in, and then it led to praying for some other people, clients I would be meeting with, and stuff like that. All that to say. My morning thing, because we're teachers and we can't help ourselves. We read something, we're always thinking about how would I share this?
Right.
How would I teach this? How would I unpack this? Because my mission statement, I've had this same mission statement for years. I want to take the Word of God and teach it in ways that are understandable and actionable. That's my two things. You can understand it and do something with it.
Yeah.
It was a little bit like I don't want the disciples to be going, I have no idea what Bruce just said. I literally.
You don't want to be Jesus.
No, because Jesus is much more profound than I am. Let's face it. I am an ordinary and unschooled man. That's my thing. But it allows me to, I think, frame some things in ways that people can understand it.
Yes.
Just in normal life.
I think you have a gift in that area.
Kind of stuff. So I'm like, TikTok, that's not a brutal time commitment. I could probably do it right from my phone. Whereas I would use, like for podcasting, we use a separate microphone and it's hooked into our computer and all that kind of stuff.
Now, would you have these TikTok videos, would it be on your website? How does that work?
So I don't know. Here,
Is it like
YouTube
look into where that.
I'm thinking about shooting it in a vehicle.
Okay.
A little bit like the guy who says karaoke music in his car all the time.
Carpool karaoke.
Carpool
Yes,
karaoke, but
he's
it's just,
awesome.
well, I love the idea of even having, you could bring other people into it, which would be fun.
Right.
But this idea of, I'm giving you a minute to something to reflect on your drive time.
Okay.
I mean, literally. So I'm driving, you're driving, we're all driving, but
A minute with Bruce.
A minute. Well, I'd rather be a minute with Jesus. That sounds better, don't you think? I mean, a minute with Bruce, that just kind of.
Well, yeah, but if you say a minute with Jesus and then it's you talking, that seems a little presumptuous.
You're right. Okay, that's
a minute with Jesus.
But I'm not.
It may sound like Bruce, but it's Jesus.
Well,
good for you.
Christ in me. There was that whole thing. So
it's a delicate position. I get it.
Let's just say a minute. Let's just call it a minute. Wait a minute. Oh, we could call it "Give me a minute."
Ooh,
there we go. Give me a minute.
I like "Wait a minute."
Wait a minute.
That's not.
Give it a minute. Minute for your thoughts.
that was disastrous. Where did that come?
Because they're not a minute for my thoughts. That's a minute for my thoughts.
Okay, I've heard the phrase penny, but I've never heard the phrase. You just invented a new phrase.
You remember what happened last night?
A minute for your thoughts.
You remember what happened last night? You were looking up the value of your home on Spotify. Spotify just notified me that the value of my home went up, and I said, "Don't you mean it was Zoom?" We are so old. I couldn't get Zillow. I was at least in the Z's.
You had the Z going.
But yeah, Zoom and Zillow are different things, and neither Zoom nor Spotify are going to give you an estimated value of your home, in case you were wondering, as Roger was. So yeah, it's just fun. Looking forward to next year and thinking about, all right, what are some things I can do, taking the gold that God's given me in my bag, that won't be overwhelming. And I'm, ramping up for, just a great year in Born to Be Wild. I had the biggest year ever on Born to Be Wild. And I think not just in terms of numbers of people and revenue, numbers of people though, definitely, revenue, definitely, but impact.
Yeah.
I'm finding I'm just getting so much joy going out in the wilderness and teaching the way of Christ and different things. And,
it's another way of proclaiming.
It's another way of proclaiming
right.
The gospel of the kingdom that we preach to the nations. Roger, people from San Francisco,
I remember
Russia, Guatemala,
even Missouri.
Yeah, like this weekend, I've got people from Michigan, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, even as far as Mobile, Alabama.
That's fun.
21 people coming out for an overnight trip at Walls of Jericho. And I think I may talk about identity again. I've been talking about this a lot more with right now, that it begins with we're loved. And from that space of love, we can find that our creators designed us. And if we know that we're loved and we're good, we're very good. When God made man and woman, he says it's very good, then that means I'm very good. In other words, the way that God's created me, and the more we press into, and I realized I got real passionate about this weekend, the more that we press into design. In other words, I'm not an accident. I'm not random. I'm not random selection.
Right.
I don't have to figure out, in one sense, who I am. It really is understanding, how has God designed me? How has he wired me?
Right.
And 5 years ago, I made the decision I want to do the things that I do best the most, which is communication.
Yeah.
I thought it would be more speaking, which it has not. Public speaking, but it's been more private speaking or small group speaking. And it's been wonderful.
And what's so important, because people listening, a couple old pastards used to be pastors, and
whoa. We have one old pastor and one young pastor. I'm still in my 50s.
Yes, that's just infancy.
Someone else is 60.
I love 60.
It's great, and it looks good on you.
Yeah, and yes, so it's kind of comical that you at the edge of 60 are mocking 60. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, that's what I like.
I still got hair,
right?
And it's somewhat dark.
I cut mine off this morning. Just
wow, that's really shiny too.
Yeah,
That's fun. Are you ever going to go complete bald?
I gloss it up.
Just completely shave the whole thing?
Probably not by choice, just because I like the little nubs there going on. But
okay, just checking. Mark's got that going on. Yeah, a lot of that really shaved down.
No, but what I wanted to hit, I think it's so important, is even this idea, because I think what we would have thought growing up in church.
Yeah.
Proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom is being a pastor, being a
an
speaker,
evangelist,
being an evangelist,
being on a big
missionary,
stage,
going to a foreign
missionary,
country.
Yes.
But listen to what you're saying. You're talking about someone doing a TikTok video, someone leading a hike. The idea is you can proclaim the gospel of the kingdom. There are hundreds of ways.
Yes.
And so it's not putting it in a box, because this, again, I think this is so important. People have this idea.
Ministry is a certain thing. Yes.
It's 4 or 5 key boxes, and they're not seeing I can proclaim the gospel in my workplace, in my school, in my neighborhood. There are these places, these interactions with my people, a gaming group,
Yes.
groups, kids that get together, play video games, or whatever.
A flying group. This one guy's in a gliding group, and I'm like, that's just so cool. You know, they fly gliders. But whatever your context, that's part of your gold in your bag.
Right. That's part of Exactly.
Even
part
your
of the relationships
becomes this is a proclamation opportunity with people.
And so to see, we can proclaim, and also to see that proclaiming the gospel isn't just pastors, evangelists, missionaries. Those terms got us, I think, derailed sometimes. Not bad terms, but the idea that was ministry, and those people are called to do that. All of us who are followers of Jesus can proclaim him. We can even, I was thinking, reflecting on this morning, just the simplicity of Jesus said, I'm the light of the world. And the more staggering thing he said is, you're the light of the world. And then he says, let your light shine.
So shine.
So shine. So the idea is, he didn't say pastors are the light of the world. Nope. Missionaries are the light of the world. Nope. You're a follower of me? Okay, my light is going to shine through you.
My light is now your light.
Right.
You are light.
I give you light. So
don't hide it.
So don't hide it. Let it. And so find the place. And again, it's just the idea where any number might have just blown off. Oh, I can't proclaim the God. Even again, the word, I think of that phrase, we just think, well, that's a specialist role. Proclaim the gospel. No, you display the gospel with your life. You speak the gospel with encouragement. You actually live the gospel in listening and paying attention to people and valuing them and in serving. All of these things are proclamation that we're all called to find the unique way to do it in your world.
Oh, I love that. This is a good podcast.
In contrast with our crappy ones.
Well, some of them have not been as good, but
it's true.
But I think this is good. I think this is very helpful. So it's that if I'm 57 and there's another man who's 77, and there's probably people listening that are 37, and maybe even people that are 17, we have a significant group in that teens to 20s. Yeah. So what can you use? What has God given you? What is your context? Where has God put you? And where can you proclaim the good news of this kingdom? The good news of the kingdom, that God loves you, that God has established a kingdom that he wants you to be a part of. And after this age, there's going to be a new age with a new heaven and a new earth, and the old order of things will pass away. And God wants you to be a part of that. And all you have to do is surrender to the king. I mean, it's just, and it's this beautiful thing of when you surrender to the king, Jesus says, when you give up everything, you get everything. It's this, you gain life. And we're so, oh gosh, I still, cling to things all the time. And Jesus is like, Bruce, but you don't cling to anything, It's even in the prodigal son story. The father says, all I have is yours. It's always been yours. So surrendering to that. And I think maybe I'm trying to even understand, or because I think of neighbors in my community, some that have known me for years now, that don't know all of who I am or what I do for a living.
Yeah.
They know components of it.
Yep.
Like one neighbor knows all about my Born Wild stuff because he's just fascinated by it. All the trips, and he saw all 13 packs out this morning because the garage door is open.
Yep.
And he's like, another big trip coming up. And I'm like, yep, love it. But I'm trying to think now, how do I even steward those relationships
Right.
all around me to let them know how much God loves them and cares for them and cares about their life. And
And it hit me as you're saying, even one of the things that can hold us back is even the disciples, that phrase, the disciples didn't understand what Jesus was saying. They didn't and this is all through, they have these moments they don't understand, but he would still send them out.
Yeah.
He would still send them out.
With an imperfect understanding.
Right. So it's like, I want to tell people too, you don't have to have it figured out. The fear that someone's going to ask me some question or that some is, just go be light. Remember, God's going with you.
Yeah.
He's proclaiming the gospel. All he needs you to do, if I can use that, is go open up a conversation or be with people or serve them.
People in some way.
But again, whether it's the thing is, I don't know enough. I there's some stuff I still don't understand.
Or I don't, and I'm not sure about my calling. This is something I run into. What's my exact calling? And what I've been sharing more and more is like with our kids when they're young, we want them to ask us what to do. What to wear. This is the way to live life. So our kids are asking us questions about what to do all the time, and we're giving them directions. They get in their teen years. It's kind of this 50-50 kind of stuff. Your child wants to do this thing, and you're like, well, if you do this thing on Friday night, you realize you're not going to be able to attend this thing on Saturday, so you got to make a decision. Your call. And then as they become adults, it's completely there. You really want them to mature to the point where they're making wise decisions.
Yeah.
And it's like years ago, I was coming to God about, what should I do in this next season? And I really felt like God said, Bruce, what do you want to do?
Okay.
What do you want to do? And I'm like, well, I want to speak. I want to do the backpacking thing because I started up the backpacking thing in 2016, which was the year that I was retiring from pastoring. And I think that was pleasing to God. He wanted me to make decisions because I'm maturing in Christ. I'm growing. In other words, I want to hear his voice just like Jesus did. And I want to do the things he calls me to do. And I want to speak his words. But there's also this part of growth that he wants me to take initiative in. And Bruce, what is it you want to do? Then go do that.
Right.
Go do that for the glory of God, the sake of his kingdom. Right. However I can use my life, my skill set, my experiences to proclaim the goodness of God, the greatness of God. Man, I want to do that. Well,
I've just loved it. I mean, I've used the analogy before. You can't steer a parked car. And I think what God loves, and it's what I hear in your words that I think is so important, start something. Step out into something. And God can always redirect. But if we're waiting, I want to wait till I have this crystal clarity.
Right.
That God wants me to do a TikTok video. That God wants me to take people on hikes.
Now that you said that, I'm unsure. Gosh. But you're right.
You should have been praying for clarity and specificity and knowing exactly the perfect will of God.
So what I'm praying for some of my clients right now is not clarity on what to do, but courage to do it.
Step out. Or just,
whatever that is.
Because I realize that is what has gotten me stuck at points. It's just,
what did in the story of the gold, what did the one guy who didn't do anything say? Well, I was afraid.
Yeah.
And the master said, well, bless your heart. No,
afraid of doing the wrong thing, he did nothing,
and
which
Jesus
was
said that was
the
wicked and
wrong
lazy,
thing.
which was the wrong thing.
Right. So that's a great. Stop trying to find the.
Don't do nothing.
Right.
There's something to the Nike thing of just do it.
Yeah, doing nothing is the wrong thing.
Is the wrong thing. So and that's something that came up on our trip this weekend. Mark has been attending this church that's a little more liturgical, and he's just loving it. Loving it. A lot more call and response, and they do the Lord's Prayer together weekly. But he said one thing that they do that is so powerful. He said, we grew up in a culture that was much more about things not to do. And so sins that don't do this. These are sins you don't want to do. But he said they pray every week and forgive us for the things omitted.
Yes.
The things that we should have done and didn't do. And I'm like, oh, that's powerful. How often? And maybe that is even what's moved me toward this. I don't want to keep omitting things that I could be doing, or maybe even, and I know we don't like to use the word should, but should be doing in this season because of the opportunities that I have and because of the bag of gold that God's given me. So I don't want to live a life of omission, because then the next three stories right after that, which I just got into, are the whole things of, I'm going to come at a time you don't expect. Now, what's interesting is he's telling his disciples, I'm going to come at a time that you don't expect.
Right.
So as soon as you think you expect it, it's going to come when you don't expect it. He said, so in essence, live ready. Mm-hmm. Just be doing the whole time. As you go along, you're making disciples. Just be doing that the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm going to come a time that you don't expect, which is so interesting because he's like, I don't even know what it is.
Right.
Only the Father knows
Right.
when it's going to be. So it's going to be unexpected.
Yeah.
So live ready. And part of that living ready is, how do I steward whatever God's given me, for the advancement of his kingdom?
Just do something today.
Do something
with what God has given you. And don't overthink. Don't underestimate God at work. You're never going out on your own. You're always going out with the light. In fact, the light, I was thinking about that image of light is, you remember those glow in the dark toys?
Yeah.
I mean, a Dracula figure, and the face or hands would be glow in the dark. So it would not have this light in itself, but if it was around the light, then then you turn the light off and then it would glow. And I just thought that's an image. We're going out. It's not our light, but it's something that God has energized.
Light that we've received.
Right.
The light within us.
It's one of the ways God lights the world. The way Jesus, the light of the world, lights the world it is actually through us, his glow in the dark followers who are taking his light, and he just says, don't hide it. Just go do something.
Yes.
Just don't do nothing.
Yeah. And as it gets darker, as the world gets darker, because I hear more and more people talking about how the world gets just so dark, and I'm like, yep, the light shines brighter.
Right.
So don't hide it under a bushel because it's getting darker.
Right. The darkness can't overcome the light. We've laughed about this, but there's not a switch for turning off the darkness. What shuts down the darkness? Darkness can never defeat light.
It can never overcome light.
Right. Light is simply eliminates,
penetrates, exposes,
minimizes it. It's ruined. It undercuts.
And isn't it interesting?
So be light. Yeah.
That the very first creative act was let there be light.
It's huge.
Let there be light.
Right.
So hide it under a bushel. No, I'm gonna let it shine. Hide it under a bushel. No, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Won't let Satan blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine. Won't let Satan blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. There was a lot of verses to that. You didn't seem to know that one.
No, I knew that one. It was just reminding me. Sometimes we got a little funky with, like,
right, what
Satan sitting on attack or something. Yeah. Remember that song?
There was a song about Satan sitting on attack. What was that about?
No, it's right. It's if the devil doesn't like it, he can sit on attack. So sometimes some of those
step on a crack and break your mother's back.
It's like, the reality is Satan can't blow your light out. That's I guess where I was struggling with that part, is he can't really just shine your light.
because of the increase in wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. So don't let it go out.
Right.
Fan it into flame.
Right.
Embers
maybe more
glowing.
than we can cover it. But he can't eliminate it.
What's a bushel? Does anyone actually know?
I
saw a giant wicker basket, but I'm thinking if you cover the light with that, it's just going to catch on fire.
Right. No, boom.
I mean, it's just like,
it's going to be brighter.
It's going to be brighter. I mean, the light's going to go to the roof. A bushel must have been.
Don't overthink the analogy.
Okay. Sorry, it's just your hat there. So this is our quote for the day.
Don't do nothing.
That's what I was going to say. Do something for the glory of God. The Lord's Prayer ends, and I love this now. I mean, it has more meaning to me. For yours is the kingdom. Yours is the power. In other words, if I'm going to do anything, it's going to come from God.
Yep.
And yours is the glory. The credit goes to God.
Right.
Because all of this is his.
And if we go out with that mindset,
I'm unafraid.
He's going to do his thing, right?
It's his kingdom, his power, his glory.
There's nothing I have to control. I don't have to have the answers to everything. I don't have to be perfect.
Nope.
I don't have to be this this flawless. I can go out, and he works through screwy people like us, through weakness, whatever,
So don't not do something. That's good. That makes them think.
Yeah.
Don't not do something.
That's beautiful.
That's good.
We-
I don't know how I do this. I just come up with this stuff.
We should probably end on that.
Well, don't.
Because he might say something else.
I'm gonna end
Yeah.
this right here, right now. It's time.
Okay.